I recently sat down with an engineer, and he had spent the better part of 3 years just trying to get a single offshore wind project approved in Northern California. He was just exhausted.
Oh, I can imagine.
Yeah, he's flipping through this 500-page PDF of impact assessments, procedural reviews, all of it. And to him, this was actually the pinnacle of modern governance. You know, meticulous, inclusive, legally airtight.
He saw the process as the victory.
Exactly. He felt a sense of moral victory just for keeping the paperwork moving. Then he shows me this clip he found. It was a time lapse from the Jianyun shipyard.
Okay.
And in the time it had taken his committee to agree on the font size for their environmental impact headers, a massive 25,000 TEU nuclear-powered container ship had been designed, laid, and launched.
Wow.
No smokestacks, no refueling stops, just raw atomic-powered capacity hitting the water. And his expression, it just shifted from professional pride to this kind of quiet, hollow shock. He whispered, "We're debating the ethics of the process while they're literally rewriting the laws of global circulation." And that sharp, uncomfortable realization, that's really the theme of this 2025 year-end report.
It's a brutal reckoning, isn't it? Between two completely diverging civilizations.
It is. One is getting tangled in this labyrinth of, legal entropy, and the other has spent the last 12 months methodically completing the physical groundwork for the next decade.
And that groundwork is what we're seeing everywhere.
From Shenzhen's breakthrough in indigenous EUV lithography to AI models like DeepSeek R1 that offer formidable power at a fraction of the cost. The verdict of 2025, it feels like it's being delivered in steel and silicon, not in op-eds.
Right. The question has changed.
It's become much more primal. In a world of scarce energy and aging infrastructure, which system actually has the state capacity to solve a problem? As we dig into the 15th five-year plan, we have to ask, has the West's obsession with the digital and the procedural finally caused it to lose its grip on physical reality?
And that's exactly what we're going to unpack. That anecdote, it's the perfect frame. We're going to look at the strategic map for the next 5 years, starting with that 15th five-year plan you mentioned.
And assess how these immense physical achievements from this past year, the steel, the silicon, the algorithms, are locking in this divergence.
Exactly. And to start, let's just define that term you used, legal entropy. It's the perfect description.
It really resonated with me.
It's this cumulative process where all the procedural overhead, the regulations, the consensus seeking, it just dissipates energy. It makes it incredibly difficult and slow to build big physical things.
While the shipyard, on the other hand, operates with
a high degree of state capacity.
Yeah.
The actual ability to formulate a goal and then implement it to make it real.
So let's dive into that blueprint for the next half decade. The 15th five-year plan, 2026 through 2030. This isn't just an economic forecast, is it?
Oh, not at all. It's a declaration of national strategic direction. It's a map. And you have to understand the moment it was formulated in.
Right. It's not in a vacuum.
Not at all. It's a period of, significant internal economic adjustment, plus this rising external volatility and really intense geopolitical competition, especially around tech.
So the strategy has to reflect that pressure.
It does. And the foundational logic is critical. When the global environment becomes hostile or unpredictable, the response isn't reactive confrontation.
It's to turn inward.
Precisely. The focus shifts inward. Deeper internal capacity building, consolidating domestic strengths, and really pushing for self-sufficiency.
So you're anchoring the whole system in a guaranteed domestic stability. You're trying to insulate its long-term goals from all that global turbulence.
You've got it. That approach gives them what the analysis calls strategic certainty. The centralized planning acts like a trans-century strategic relay.
A relay, I like that.
They are systematically moving toward goals set for 2035, even for mid-century, knowing the plans made today will be executed regardless of what happens outside.
And that consistency, that's the real advantage, isn't it, compared to the policy landscape in the West?
It's a massive advantage. Here, you often have these frequent policy flip-flops tied to very short, very volatile electoral cycles.
Right. A new administration comes in and everything gets thrown out.
Exactly. And that volatility makes it almost impossible to maintain the consensus, let alone the funding, for these huge, decades-long infrastructure projects.
It's the difference between planning for the next quarter and planning for the next 3 generations.
It is. And that long-term view is baked right into the plan structure. It's built on 6 main principles that reinforce this systematic long-range vision.
So it's not just a list of economic targets.
No, it includes the fundamental political principle of upholding party leadership, but also the economic imperative of high-quality development and more balancing national security with economic development.
And that structure ensures resources go where they're needed most strategically.
Yes. It means resources are pooled and directed based on national strategic needs.
Yeah.
It prioritizes those long-term goals over the fragmented short-term demands of local or vested interests.
It's what allows for that massive resource mobilization toward a single goal, like tech self-reliance.
That's what some call synergistic governance. The central authority sets the long-term strategic direction, and the market's job is to innovate and execute within those focused parameters.
And looking at those goals, the FYP is crystal clear. The focus is on the physical world. There's a line that says, the real economy cannot be lost.
It's an anti-deindustrialization manifesto. It's a commitment to maintaining a high proportion of manufacturing while also upgrading all those traditional industries.
It's a civilizational bet on the physical bedrock of power.
It is. While some economies have seen that neoliberal hollowing out of their industrial base, sacrificing manufacturing for finance, this plan doubles down. The belief is that true resilience comes from being able to make things.
And you see the immediate result of that in logistics. That brings us back to the engineer's story, but this time from the perspective of a logistics coordinator, Zhao, at the port of Ningbo.
Right, he's watching the arrival of the very first generation of these nuclear-powered mega freighters.
And the scale is just staggering.
It's remarkable. These are huge 25,000 TEU vessels, and their whole operational profile is different because, as you said, they never need to stop for fuel. They have onboard nuclear reactors. It's a total shift toward energy sovereignty in maritime logistics.
Zhao's observation that while committees elsewhere are debating font sizes, these silent giants are rewriting global shipping. It's just such a clinical illustration of state capacity.
It's the definitive victory of physics over procedure. It's not about debate. It's about raw, cold implementation.
You create what's being called circulation hegemony.
That's the term. By commanding the flow of goods with maximum fuel-independent efficiency, you create a strategic asset. Think about it. You drastically cut transit costs, you shave days off shipping times, you bypass all the traditional refueling choke points.
Many of which are in politically volatile areas.
Exactly. That level of control over global commerce is a strategic asset far more robust than any short-term diplomatic deal. It's a physical reality.
And this commitment to structure, it goes beyond the seas and deep into domestic architecture. Urban renewal is apparently a huge part of the agenda now.
It is, but the key is how it's being framed. It's not the speculative financial engine it used to be.
Okay, so what is it now?
It's being repositioned in the FYP as a stabilizing force. The speculative high-leverage model is out. The new model is focused on genuine structural need and managing risk.
Which means?
It means an intense focus on affordable housing, subsidized rentals, and these massive urban renewal programs, especially in the first-tier cities, Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou.
And why is that suddenly a top-tier national driver?
Because of the scale of past urbanization. A lot of the existing housing and commercial stock goes back to the 80s and 90s.
So it's aging out.
Rapidly. It's not meeting modern seismic codes, environmental standards, or demographic needs. We're talking tens of millions of square meters of outdated structures, inefficient land use, aging power grids, water mains, all due for replacement.
So you're creating necessary structural demand.
You are. And that demand can absorb huge amounts of construction capital and labor. You're replacing speculative demand with demand generated by essential maintenance and upgrades.
So it's necessary work that also happens to provide the economic activity needed to hit growth targets?
Precisely. It's a calculated, stable engine for future growth, replacing a much riskier leveraged one. And that same logic, that desire for stability, extends right into the financial system.
Right. The FYP wants to revitalize capital markets, but it sees unfettered financialization as a strategic risk.
A major strategic risk. The rule is simple. Finance must be a disciplined servant of industry, not its master.
And we saw that control in action over 2024 and 2025.
We did. The contraction of the quant hedge fund sector is a very sharp indicator of this regulatory intent. They want to curb speculative algorithmic trading.
The numbers were pretty stark.
By mid-2024, the number of big quant funds, those managing over, say, $1.37 billion, had dropped to just 30. And even more telling, their average loss in the first half of that year was 8.6%.
So how did they do it? It wasn't just a decree.
No, it was much more sophisticated. It was a policy that targeted the physics of trading. Regulators brought in new rules on market access, data latency, capital requirements, all specifically for high-frequency trading.
So they just slowed things down a tiny bit.
Just enough. By slightly slowing access for the algorithms and tightening the rules on data streams, the lifeblood of quant funds, they basically removed the speed advantage. It dampened the speculative froth and encouraged capital to go back into safer industrial channels.
Directly serving the FYP's main goal.
Yes, strengthening the real economy. So you see them curbing that high-risk speculation on one side, while on the other, they're pushing forward a highly controlled innovation like the digital renminbi.
The ECNY, its adoption has been accelerating very quickly.
Very. By the end of September 2025, cumulative transactions hit something like RMB 14.2 trillion. And this isn't just a new payment app. It's a deep integration of financial innovation with state oversight.
It gives them total visibility into capital flows.
Granular visibility. It ensures liquidity and infrastructure are channeled directly into strategic state-led industrial projects. It insulates the core economy from that kind of American-style market volatility.
This entire foundation, long-term planning, physical infrastructure, controlled finance, it really sets the stage for what is maybe the most critical indicator of this whole structural push: mastering advanced silicon.
Right. This is where we move from the physical movement of goods to the physical capability to process information.
Because the constant tightening of U.S. export controls has become more than an inconvenience.
It's been internalized as a permanent structural threat. So the goal is no longer just adapting to sanctions. The goal is absolute structural self-reliance in fundamental technologies.
And the centerpiece of that entire effort is a reported working prototype of an indigenous extreme ultraviolet and EUV lithography machine in Shenzhen.
This is the paradigm shift. This is the thing that everyone from Western analysts to the CEO of ASML assumed was technologically impossible for China to achieve this decade.
Because it is the ultimate choke point technology.
It's the only way to manufacture the most advanced chips. The kind you need for frontier AI, for sophisticated defense systems. For years, ASML's monopoly was the single most powerful tool the U.S. had. The whole strategy rested on the assumption that mastering EUV would take decades.
And a working prototype shatters that assumption.
Completely. And the scale of the domestic effort tells you everything about its importance. The sources are explicitly calling this China's Manhattan Project.
Which is not a term you use lightly.
No. It means the project operates outside the normal rules of commercial feasibility or quarterly returns. It's a top-tier national priority, overseen by senior leadership, who demand results at any cost.
The original Manhattan Project delivered in under 4 years.
By coordinating immense state resources and talent in absolute secrecy. When you apply that mobilization model to semiconductor sovereignty, the timeline for mastery compresses dramatically.
And you can see that intensity in the human stories behind it, like the story of Dr. Sun, an engineer at a light source facility in Hefei.
She represents that pure technocratic focus. She reportedly spent 3 years just obsessing over the precise refraction of light in their EUV system. Her mandate wasn't market-friendly alternatives. It was to achieve physical sovereignty.
The undeniable, tangible ability to make the thing yourself.
And she described hitting a wall when the sanctions intensified, a moment where a normal, financially driven company would have pivoted.
Right, to software services or something.
But her team had no alternative plan. Their only mandate was to find an engineering solution. It shows this profound civilizational resilience. When they finally etched that first wafer, she didn't issue a press release. She just collapsed from exhaustion.
And that exhaustion is the measure of the effort. It's a total divergence in what you're optimizing for.
It is. One system optimizes for the user experience, for convenience, for financial leverage. The other optimizes purely for the production baseline, for capacity, for material independence. You can't download a microchip. And this effort shows that real resilience is built on manufacturing capability.
Let's talk about the speed, because the reported timeline is what's causing the real shockwaves.
It is. The prototype was reportedly finished in early 2025 and is already being tested. That is years ahead of every single outside projection.
And the method was just brute force engineering.
That's the description. ASML's machines are these marvels of compact, precise engineering. Reports suggest the Chinese prototype is even bigger. It fills an entire factory floor.
Because they couldn't replicate the compact design yet.
Apparently not. So they just scaled up every component until they got the precision they needed.
But scale isn't everything. Something must have accelerated the process.
Talent acquisition. specifically the aggressive recruitment of former ASML engineers. They provided the institutional knowledge, the process troubleshooting you just can't get from patents.
Like Lin Man?
The former head of light source technology at ASML, a key acquisition. His team filed 8 indigenous EUV patents in just 18 months. That's leveraging years of direct, first-hand experience. That's what shaved years off the development cycle.
So given that acceleration, what are the actual production targets now?
The official goal is extremely ambitious. Working chip production by 2028.
That seems incredibly fast.
It is. We have to be analytical. ASML took about a decade to go from just generating EUV light to reliable commercial manufacturing. Engineers closer to the Chinese project are suggesting 2030 is more realistic.
But even 2030 is years ahead of where everyone thought they'd be.
5 years ahead of the most optimistic Western estimates from before 2025. This timeline compression fundamentally changes the entire game of compute dominance.
And they're not just betting on one horse. The sources say they're pursuing 2 concurrent technical paths to generate the light.
Yes, and that coordinated mobilization, attacking the problem from multiple angles, is characteristic of the whole effort. The hardest part of EUV is generating light at exactly 13.5 nanometers. You have to vaporize molten tin droplets with a powerful laser to create plasma.
And the first path, Lin Nan's team is using solid-state lasers.
Correct, AENDR-AG 1064 nanometer laser. They chose this path strategically because China already has a strong industrial base in solid-state lasers, and it helps them avoid ASML CO2 laser patents.
So they're trying to get to the same result from a different starting point. What's the key metric?
It's called conversion efficiency, or CE. It's how efficiently you can convert the laser's input energy into that very specific 13.5 nanometer EUV light. It's the hardest part because most of the energy is wasted as heat or other light.
And for commercial production, you need a CE of what, around 5.5%?
That's the standard. And this is what's remarkable. In late 2024, Lin's team reported a CE of 3.42% in an experimental setup.
How does that compare?
The top research center in the Netherlands, ARCNL, only hit 3.2% in a similar experiment years before. So while 3.42% isn't 5.5%, they're confident they can refine it to 6%, which would actually put them ahead of current commercial standards.
That is just immense progress with a totally different architecture. And the second path?
That's the laser-assisted discharge-produced plasma, or LDPE, approach.
Yeah.
Zhao Yangpeng's team.
And how does that one work?
It accelerates plasma formation by combining the laser with high-voltage electricity. You use an electrical discharge to preform the plasma, then a lower power laser to boost the EUV generation.
What's the trade-off there?
It's more stable, but it struggles to scale up to the high power levels you need for commercial lithography. Right now, its output is around 100 watts. ASML's is closer to 600. You need at least 250 watts for high-volume production.
But having 2 teams attacking the problem ensures resilience. If one half hits a wall, the other can be accelerated.
It's all institutionalized within the FYP's push for new quality productive forces. It shows a system optimizing for capability and self-reliance above all else. In semiconductors, quantum, biotech, you name it.
Which leads us directly to the third major development this year. What happens when that domestic chip-making capacity converges with domestic AI prowess?
The DeepSeek moment.
Exactly. This was one of the single most disruptive events in the global tech market this year. The launch of the open-source DeepSeek R1 AI model in January 2025. It sent tremors through the entire landscape.
And the market reaction was immediate. U.S. stocks lost $1 trillion in value in the week after the launch.
NVIDIA alone took a massive hit.
A staggering $589 billion loss in market cap. This wasn't just noise. It was a tangible market reassessment of the durability of the U.S. compute monopoly. The market suddenly realized that competitive AI could emerge very rapidly from unexpected places.
And the driving factor was cost efficiency.
Absolutely. The R1 models offered formidable capability, competitive with top U.S. proprietary models, but at a tiny fraction of the cost. Some estimates said 25x cheaper than O1. A leading Western model.
That kind of efficiency doesn't happen by accident.
No, it's born of necessity. It highlights this ability to do more with less. Because of the compute constraints from sanctions, their labs have to focus on algorithmic optimization and data efficiency. DeepSeek used around 10,000 older A100 GPUs.
Which sounds like a lot, but
it pales in comparison to the 100,000 plus H100 data centers being announced by Western competitors. For them, the efficiency dividend isn't a luxury. It's a survival mechanism imposed by the strategic environment.
So AI stops being a consumer product or a lifestyle accessory, and it becomes a survival-grade optimization engine for the state.
You've hit it. We're shifting from general-purpose AI to what you could call state-capacity AI.
And you see this in practice. I heard about a developer, Lee, in Zhongguancun. His focus with DeepSeek R1 isn't chatbots.
Not at all. His team's primary project was reportedly using R1 to optimize the energy distribution of the high-speed rail network during a simulated national emergency, ensuring critical capacity stays online under severe stress.
That is the engineering dividend in action.
It is the systematic mobilization of a huge, skilled workforce by an efficient bureaucratic system to achieve high, robust physical output. Developer Lee represents a technocratic meritocracy focused on national resilience. He's less concerned with the Western academic debate on AI ethics and more concerned with optimizing performance.
For them, AI is just the most powerful tool available to make sure the physical machine of the state doesn't break.
And that really draws the sharp contrast between the two dominant AI development cultures. They are structurally divergent.
The Western approach is very public, very focused on safety, alignment, ethics.
Right, framing AI in terms of societal impact and personal productivity. Whereas the technocratic approach is much more opaque, driven by state priorities, and optimized purely for capability and strategic advantage. The incentives are just completely different.
There's less public discussion of superintelligence risk and just this relentless push for more capability.
Which is why the timeline convergence is becoming a source of real strategic concern.
Explain that.
If China hits that domestic EUV production target by, say, 2030, they remove their fundamental compute bottleneck. And this happens right at the moment that AGI-level capabilities are projected to emerge globally late 2020s, early 2030s.
So the assumed advantage of U.S. compute dominance, which was supposed to buy time for alignment research, that advantage erodes.
Precisely. If both sides know the other is nearing that AGI threshold, the race dynamic creates a massive incentive to move faster. And in that environment, the nation that can move fastest, unburdened by the overhead of safety debates, might have the decisive edge.
This convergence of structural capacity from the FYP, physical independence with EUV, and advanced optimization with AI, it creates a profound strategic asymmetry.
It does. We started by talking about how the FYP gives them a monopoly on strategic time, and that structural consistency is maybe their greatest non-technological advantage.
Their policy has been incredibly steady for decades.
While the U.S. framework is often volatile, reactive, tied to those electoral cycles, trying to coordinate a decades-long strategy is structurally crippling when your own goals might change every 4 years.
And the plan itself sends a deliberate signal by strategically omitting its biggest rival.
It's a remarkable bit of messaging. The FYP makes no direct reference to the United States. None.
And that's not an accident.
Not at all. It's a strategic judgment to anchor their entire development path in internal priorities. By insulating themselves from the unpredictable swings of American policy, they underscore this widening gap in strategic consistency. Their focus is internal. They plan to progress regardless of the external noise.
And you see that strategic patience applied to the most sensitive issue of all, Taiwan. The language in the FYP is firm, but it's deliberately non-escalatory.
The language is calculated to be consistent and predictable. It serves that long-term goal of stability. It affirms opposition to independence and external interference, but, and this is critical, it conspicuously avoids adding any new deadlines or coercive timelines for unification.
And why is that distinction so important?
Because it directly contradicts the imminent conflict narratives that have been so popular in Western defense analysis, the supposed 2027 invasion deadline.
Right.
By maintaining a preference for stability and economic integration, they're demonstrating strategic patience.
The calculus seems to be that long-term unification is best served by gradual integration, not by a near-term military conflict that would risk everything.
So the strong reactions we see are responses to perceived changes in the status quo by others, not a signal of a change in their own long-term strategy. That seems to be the case. They are reacting to the external environment while reinforcing the status quo of their own strategic patience.
And that consistency extends to their idea of deterrence, which is evolving way beyond just nuclear weapons.
That's a crucial shift, and it's often misunderstood. Their concept of strategic deterrence is moving toward what they call intelligentized, multi-domain capabilities.
Intelligentized warfare. What does that mean in practice?
Think of warfare driven by integrated AI, massive data networks, and unmanned platforms. The goal is to deny an adversary operational confidence through multi-layered integrated systems, not just by matching them nuke for nuke.
And the 2025 9-3 parade was a showcase of this.
It was a showcase of next-gen capabilities, extensive deployments of unmanned combat systems, new long-range precision strike platforms, hypersonic support assets.
The emphasis is on integration.
Cross-domain integration, drone swarms linked to AI-enabled command networks, all designed to achieve information dominance.
And the push into future air power seems just as aggressive.
They have at least 3 different 6th-generation fighter prototypes in development. These aren't just upgrades. They're focused on manned-unmanned teaming, AI-driven combat management, and distributed lethality. They're designed for information warfare.
And on the naval side, the Fujian aircraft carrier.
The Fujian is the symbol of that transition. Its electromagnetic catapult system is a massive technological leap. It lets them launch aircraft more efficiently, which expands their ability to project power far beyond their immediate region.
So it's a whole integrated toolkit designed to shape the strategic environment through information dominance and resilience.
Yes, and it systematically challenges the traditional U.S. assumptions about how deterrence is maintained in this new world.
What a comprehensive picture. From the long-term consistency of the 5-year plan all the way to these immediate, tangible breakthroughs, the underlying lesson of 2025 feels stark.
It is. It feels like a decisive victory for a governance model that is fundamentally results-oriented, a model focused obsessively on hard, measurable physical output.
The pursuit of infrastructure hegemony, like those nuclear freighters.
Technological self-reliance in silicon, and using AI as a survival-grade optimization tool. It all represents a deep structural campaign against what one observer called civilizational entropy increase.
They're systematically replacing procedural paralysis with physical construction.
And the final lesson is one of brutal physical honesty. It goes beyond political rhetoric.
It really does. The future of global competition, it seems, won't be shaped by short-term volatility or electoral cycles.
No, it will be shaped by which system can build and maintain the most resilient, adaptive, and strategically coherent domestic foundation. It's measured by the physical honesty of steel moved and the logic gates etched in silicon. The victory belongs to those who build.